Welcome to Create Your Happy, the podcast that empowers conscious women in life, relationship, and business. I'm your host, Christy Holt, happiness hussy and conscious funpreneur on a mission to change the world one beautiful soul at a time. Now get ready, because on this very special bonus season, we are going to take your entrepreneurial journey to a whole nother level. These uncut conversations are designed to support you as you unleash your entrepreneurial brilliance upon the world. My incredible guests and I have come together with a shared vision to empower women to fully embrace their humanness, find their unique voice, and lead with love. All right, gorgeous, it's time to get curious and become inspired. It's time to create your happy. Welcome to this week's episode of the Masterclass series. I am super excited today to have Sonia Lopez with me, and she is an energy leadership manifestation coach here to share with us all about leading with energy. I am super excited to have you here and to share this conversation. Sonia, welcome. I would love for you to share a little bit about, we all have that story. We all have that background of like why we do the things that we're doing and what led us exactly to this place and the passion in our heart to help the people that we're helping with that very thing. So I would love for you to kick us off by sharing a little bit about yourself and your story and how your journey got you to this place here today.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody who's going to be watching this and listening. So I'm Sonia Lopez, energy leadership manifestation coach. I have been coaching for 14 years, and I've been on a manifesting journey, and we can get into that a little bit because I know that maybe a lot of people don't understand about manifesting, but I've been on this journey since I was 5 years old. My mom studied metaphysics, and she, would talk about the law of attraction and the universal laws. And even though I probably wasn't paying attention at the time, a lot of it stayed with me. And in 2009, I went through a really huge life transition. I lost my mother suddenly. And I was going through a period prior to losing her that was like, I call it the bubble. It's like you're going through this, like life is pretty good on the outside, but something feels like it's missing. And you're kind of like, trying to maybe find your purpose, but you're not conscious of that. And then all of a sudden I lost my mom, and that I call it my awakening. It was a period of time where I was like, okay, there's got to be more to life than this, even though life is pretty good.
Yeah.
And that pivotal moment really was the catalyst to me becoming an energy leadership manifestation coach. And there was a lot in between there that happened as well that were just continued awakenings for me to really choose to live my life with intention instead of autopilot.
And that's like the crux of the awakening is just more awareness, right? It's the next level of awareness. And sometimes that's like huge, ripped wide open, like massive leap in increased awareness. And sometimes it's a little bit at a time as you're like building and building and building, slowly increasing your awareness and your consciousness of, not only who you are, but how things work in the world and your part in it. And I have, I love to use the word create, because that create, manifest, they're very much the same, but people have different perspectives on different words. And so I love the word create, but I think it means to me very much the same as manifesting. It's intentionally manifesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, I always, some people have an adverse reaction to the word manifestation because it can sound so woo. And since that life transition that I went through, I went down the rabbit hole of the science side of manifestation. So I've studied neuroscience with Dr. Joe Dispenza before he became a household name.
Love Dr. Joe.
and it actually ended up helping me to understand the deeper layers of manifestation, co-creation, or intentional creation. Because then in 2014, I went through another life awakening journey, more of like a dark night of the soul, where I got really sick with 5 autoimmune conditions and felt really asked by a higher intelligence to go deeper down this studies, I like to call them studies, and understanding how I could heal myself not just by putting it on a vision board, but by doing the inner work to, understand how our emotions impact our physiology and all that kind of stuff. So manifestation to me in my world is just another word for intentionally creating the life that we want to create.
And I mean, we're creating it,
Yeah.
whether we're intentional or not. And that's the thing, right? Is we are creating it. Just sometimes we're not aware that we're creating it. And a lot of times, let's be really frank here, we don't want to take fucking responsibility for what we've created. Hello, me too. I'm there. I also have had experiences and I'm like, oh, I don't want to really taking personal responsibility for that. I don't know. That's tough, right? So, shifting that into being more purposeful, more intentional with it is us taking back our power.
I mean, listen, it's so easy to be on autopilot, right? To just not have to think about what do I want to create? What do I want to eat today? How do I want my body to feel, right? It's so easy to just drop into autopilot, and our brain is actually wired for that. The chemistry takes over. Your thoughts create a chemistry of emotions, right? We call them emotions, but it's actually a cocktail of chemistry that then takes over the body, and the body just runs on autopilot. So, because your brain doesn't like to expend energy.
Yeah.
So
efficient,
the body
right?
takes over. Yeah, the body. I mean, it's efficient, but it can be a pain in the butt when you're
in the wrong way.
Why do I keep repeating the pattern over and over again? Well, it's because your body has taken over. Your body just takes over and it looks for the same exact chemistry. And so intentional co-creating is very powerful, but it requires radical self-responsibility.
Yeah, that's that pairing, right? Where a lot of us are wanting to experience something different than what we are at the moment. And yet there's that little piece, right, of that radical responsibility that sometimes we're maybe just not ready for. And if that's you, that's okay. Everybody's at a different place on their journey. So just want to encourage you that maybe there is a piece there for you to look at. Where can you take a little bit more radical responsibility for what you're creating with those thoughts and the emotions and then your actions, which flow from that? And yeah, our brain is wired for survival. Right. So this is why it very efficiently is just okay, well, this is what we know. So we're just going to roll that easy peasy, roll the tape over and over and over, Groundhog Day in perpetuity until we say, well, hold up a minute. I don't actually want this outcome. And that's not enough. You can't just be like, I don't want this. You got to do something to change it, right? You have to take that radical responsibility and say, okay, what am I doing to contribute to this so I can shift that? Because otherwise we are going to be stuck on autopilot and continuing to get those outcomes maybe that we don't really want.
It's so interesting. I talk about the 4 stages of manifestation, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of or even talk about in the manifesting world. So there are 4 stages. I've been through them all. And we dance in between them. Most people are in stage 2 of manifestation. Most people that become, aware to, oh, hey, I get to actually co-create my life. And this is what I want it to look like. And they play in stage 2. About 85% of us really play in stage 2, which stage 2 is by me. So it's when people start reading the books and start educating themselves and start doing the vision boards and the affirmations. And then you get to a point, at least the women I attract in my world with coaching, they are dancing in stage 2 and are starting to enter stage 3, which is through me manifestation, which is when you actually become the channel, because all the seeds of creation are already implanted in us. And then in that stage, you actually get to co-create with a higher intelligence. I like to use the words interchangeably of God, universe, source, but whatever that is for anybody out there listening to this.
All that is the force,
whatever the higher power, the force, right? Whatever the higher power is for you. I'm not here to preach. Love, magnetism, energy, whatever, life force, right? Yeah. That's really fun because then you are just the leading energy. You're like, oh, how am I going to feel today? And in relation to that, if you're an open channel, right, because energy either contracts or expands based on how we're feeling, then you get to have I call them downloads of what is the next step I should be taking? What is the inspired action? What's the synchronicity that just showed up in my world? And that's a really fun way to manifest, because that's when I call it, like, it does feel like stuff is falling from the sky. You did the work, you did the inner work to start to be the leading energy, and then now the universe is like, all right, let's have fun with this, let's co-create. So yeah, the 4 stages are fun. Not the first stage. The first stage is more of like, life is happening to me.
Yeah, more victim
Yeah.
sort of position where you don't have any control. And nobody wants to be in that place where they don't feel like they have control. And I think that a lot of people that are in that stage really are feeling that pull, like, I'm trying to grasp at control.
Yeah.
Probably going about it mostly the wrong ways. Hello, I've been there too.
I mean,
And
I
have
think
done
we
that.
all have, Christy.
Yeah.
I think, like I said before, when we started chatting, when I was 37, this is when my mom passed away. About 2 years prior to that, you could say I was dancing in victim consciousness, because I was like, yeah, life is pretty good, but I didn't think to get curious about, well, could it get better? How could it get better? And how am I responsible for co-creating that? And so I kind of was going through the motions. And that's why when we go through the motions long enough, our soul will start, I call it a spark. It'll start to like spark from within. And it doesn't always feel good. It can feel uncomfortable because we have been so used to being on autopilot.
Yeah.
But in my case, it's always like the universe coming and going, wake up, lady.
Right.
And then, I had these real life moments that were dark, that woke me up. So hopefully that's not the case for most people, but yeah, those happen too.
Yeah, hopefully not. I mean, I definitely was there as well, a part of my journey. And I would say, like, when I was in that space, I spent a lot of time blaming, complaining, fault finding, everything outside of myself. Essentially, I was looking to the world for my experience and not taking any of that personal responsibility. I tell this story very often, but I had this sort of like, holy shit moment. Like, oh my God, it's me. It's me. It's not all just like happening to me. I'm also contributing to this. And what I'm contributing is interchanging and co-creating what's happening around me, not the other way around. And so I had this sort of like, aha, like moment where I realized that I really needed to shift out of the complaining and then blaming, because that was keeping me stuck in that victim mentality. And I didn't want to be a victim. Like, nobody actually wants to be a victim. So I want to say, like, if you're out there thinking like, well, of course I don't want to fucking feel like a victim, but this happened to me. There's just a tiny shift to make, to shift out of that, where you become free and you become victorious instead of remaining stuck in that mentality. Now, again, as always, I like to clarify here that if you were the victim of abuse, this is not to diminish that in any way, but it is to free you from the ongoing suffering that you're carrying with you, because you didn't deserve it when it happened to you, and you do not deserve to continue carrying it along the way with you either. We want you to experience freedom so that you can truly rise above whatever the worst circumstances maybe that you have endured, right? So that you can start to create ones that feel better and better and better and better, like an upward spiral. And sort of, instead of being stuck in like the downward spiral of everything's happening to me, now we're moving up through this pattern.
I'm so glad you made that distinction with the victim consciousness, because it's not to negate that some people are, like, right now, what's going on in the world, like they're being victimized. And so it's not to negate that, but it's one of the quotes that I always go to when I'm feeling like, holy crap, is pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. It's not that life isn't going to life, right?
And
I make this very clear in manifesting, because a lot of manifesting teachings teach us to bypass that life happens. So I always want to make that distinction, because it's very important for the people in my world to know that you get to be human and still have an amazing life. You get to be human and still experience shadow and density, and that doesn't, it doesn't make you any less magnetic or powerful as a co-creator. So I'm glad you brought that up.
It's part of our wholeness. And
exactly.
Any part of us, any part of that wholeness that we're resisting causes pain and suffering because it creates this illusion of suffering within ourselves.
Yeah.
That is just an illusion. And so
contraction, right? Because we're ultimately saying it's not okay to feel negative or be negative right now when life just doesn't look good. And then you start to, judgment creates contraction. So I always I'm so glad you brought that up, because it's such a distinction that I love making with, being like a human, and you don't have to always be positive and happy-go-lucky. In fact,
you know what? That positive vibes only thing is bullshit, and it's not actually helpful. It is just
it's not even true.
It's not even true.
I should say.
Yeah,
because I will say that when I was and I share this a lot, when I was going through a 4-year healing journey of 5 autoimmune conditions, I was on a couch situationally depressed, and I manifested some really epic stuff. So it had nothing to do with what, how I was feeling in and out of like that state. It had to do with what I believed was possible and my self-worth. So the stages, going back to the stages, there's 4 stages. The first stage is victim consciousness. The second is by me manifestation, which is where most people create from their, like I said before, they're the conscious co-creator. There's still some ego involved. Mm-hmm. So it's egoic manifesting.
Yeah.
Stage 3 is through me, which means you're an open channel. And now the ego is kind of taking a back seat, and you are actually more in alignment with your limitless potential, because the universe, you're allowing the universe to work through you. And then the 4th stage is ask me. Ask me is when you are truly, and then energy leadership would call this level 6 and 7, the scale of consciousness. You are really, you have embodied and are anchored in the knowing and the truth that you are the universe and you are the channel, and there is no ego involved at all. And what you're not even trying to co-create. You just know, and you just move as the leading energy.
Yeah.
So it's a very powerful stage to manifest from. It's where everything happens the quickest.
I guess my question at this point would be, is it common? Because this would be my experience, and I'm thinking it's common. That's why I'm asking. Hopefully it's common, and I'm not some like strange outlier. But if I am, that's okay. I'll own that. I feel like it's a floating between, like we're as humans not capable of always completely 100% necessarily operating at that optimal top level of consciousness, because we are human, and because we are in this physical realm, and we have the world around us that creates different illusions for us. And so it is, to me, I find that's the challenge, is staying in like the state of being, like that state of isness, with complete consistency when something happens in the world that kind of, snaps me back to reality, if you will. And it kind of breaks that state in that higher state and brings me back down just a touch. So I would love for you to share your thoughts on that, for me personally, and probably for some of the people listening too who might have a similar experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always say, and this kind of goes back to what we just talked about being human.
Yeah.
As long as you have a nervous system, you're always going to toggle in all the stages. But if you have a manifesting practice, you will toggle more in stages 2, 3, and 4. And like 2, 3, and 4, let's say, but really 3 and 4.
Yeah.
If you have a manifesting practice.
Yeah.
And this is what I teach. And so to your point about like when life snaps us back, true enlightenment and true like stage 4 is chop wood, carry water. It's chop wood, carry water. It's just your perception of it is different.
Yeah.
And you feel differently about chopping wood and carrying water.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, I have to chop wood and carry water. Now, again, level 6 and 7, I'm going back to my energy leadership levels of consciousness. It is that level of like accepting the present moment as is.
Yeah. And humans have a real way of arguing with reality. and
Exactly.
arguing with the present moment, which actually serves only to take us right out of the present moment, does it not? It takes us into the past where we're, thinking like this should have happened differently, or it takes us into worry about the future. If we are truly accepting of this present moment here and now, we are actually in it. that's our pathway to be in this present moment here and now, and not in some other, some other time and space.
Yeah, and when we do that and when we master that as part of our manifesting practice, which is being in the present moment, and I teach, because like I said before, we have a nervous system, so I teach my clients that in the present moment, can you remind yourself that you're safe?
Yeah.
Right? Most of us are. A lot of us are not, but most of us are safe. And that really can anchor us into the present moment. And when you're in the present moment, you're usually in non-judgment of what is, of what was, or of what you want it to be. So when you eliminate non-judgment, you become that open channel.
Yeah.
And the universe or a higher intelligence really can work through you and actually surprise you with manifestations that go above and beyond the limited thinking mind.
Yeah, and I think I find the enlightenment path or awakening journey or any of those things, I find it so interesting because it's really like overcoming ourselves, overcoming our ego, overcoming, and not overcoming like we're smashing it or killing it or anything like that, just overcoming the illusion that is stronger than the truth, right? And so coming to grips with who we truly are, which is this energy, this love, this unconditional love, this energetic force that is everything and nothing all at once. It's kind of it's a mind fuck, right? So our logical minds want to make sense of what can't be made sense of, and myself especially, because I'm very like, I have a very analytical mind. I used to be an accountant, so my mind likes to really, go there and make sense of and understand things. And so I find that that's actually like something that I'm really working hard to overcome, because some of the greatest things can't be made to understand with our human mind, because it's beyond that.
Well, I love that. And I have a really magical way, I'm going to say it, of like bringing all of these like sort of esoteric kind of concepts and like grounding them into the 3D. And because I have so much proof of miracles in my life, like actual miracles. And if we think about it from consciousness and energy, and I'm going to get a little geeky here for a moment. And I learned this after my mom passed away, like really learned it. Like I always knew it, but I actually learned it in my body as a knowingness
the
in
thing,
my body. Yeah.
Right? Like that knowledge is one thing, but to actually be it, that is the trickier part.
When you think about like everything is energy, and science is now proving this, they're taking, like a pen, and if we put this pen under a microscope, it's all particles, like atoms, right? And the only thing that's making it solid is our focus on it, that we're calling it a pen, and that we label it a pen, and that our attention goes to it, and like, oh, it's a pen. You think it's a pen. I think it's a pen. It becomes a pen. But when you put it under a microscope, it's particles, right? So
observer theory, like,
yeah. So when my mom passed away, prior to her passing, I lost a friend 8 months prior. He had a surfing accident and he passed away. And he and I had been friends in high school, and we kind of reconnected on Facebook. And we weren't super close, but we had seen each other recently and all this stuff. And he passed away, and all of a sudden I started channeling him. Mm-hmm. I had never consciously channeled before. We're always channeling, but this time I could actually hear his voice. Mm-hmm. I thought I was going crazy.
Yeah, like, whoa.
And I was like, oh, what is happening here? So I actually went to my mom, who was very spiritual person, and understood metaphysics and everything, the science behind it. Mm-hmm. And I said, Mom, why did he pick me to channel messages for his sister? And she said, get over yourself. Like, meaning get over your ego.
Yeah.
He didn't pick you because of you. He picked you because you're an open channel. You're an open conduit. And that's when I realized, but wait till I finish the story. But that's when I realized that everything is energy. He didn't die. His physical body did.
Mm.
And then 8 months later, my mom passed away suddenly. And she started channeling through me.
Mm.
And that's when I realized there is no separation. We are not separate. We are pure consciousness. And the reason why my friend had picked me was to prepare me for what was to come, so that I could then be open to channeling my mom. And that's when I realized that, oh, okay, yeah, everything is energy. We just, our left brain wants to make sense of it. And if you really want to add more magic to all of this and more shift into a miracle mindset, just think about a baby in the womb. Nobody's trying to control the development of a fetus into an infant. We trust that it's going to.
Yeah.
You're a mom. I'm a mom. I never sat there going, hey, kid, you got to start growing hair now.
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, I don't know what's happening in there, but it's happening,
Yeah.
So that is just, I always say to people, like, when you really get into your left brain, and God knows I have a left brain because my background is in computer science. I studied computer operations. So, talk about a left brain.
So you feel me. Okay.
Yeah, totally, girl. I totally feel you. Like, but it's like, let's shift into a miracle mindset.
Yeah.
If, and what does that look like? Just think about a baby in the womb. There's a higher intelligence. We don't know. It's just developing into a human.
And I think which is easier said than done, I'll say that right up front. If we can let go of the control that the ego wants to have, we can actually witness the unfolding that didn't actually need so much of our involvement in, right? Like we're trying to force things, we're trying to control things, we're trying to make things happen in the way that we want, our ego wants. And the more we try to do that, the more resistance we actually create to the natural flow of things. I think this is a channeled message for myself, that sort of flow through you, that energy flowing through you to create can be unobstructed. But ego likes to get in the way and be like, oh, I know how to do this. I know what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to do it. We're going to make this shit happen. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I used to be that person.
Yeah. Get out of our own way.
Absolutely. And the cool thing is that you can still play with the ego when it comes to manifesting. And so, for example, for me, one way that, when I started to rebuild my business after being sick and taking time off, I started to okay, I have to invest in this and I have to figure this out and I have to figure out the how and I have to figure out the how. And it wasn't really gaining traction and momentum. Like, I would attract clients, but it wasn't catching on. And then one day I had I'm clairaudient. Like my main intuitive path is clairaudience. And so I heard Source say, here's what you need to do. And so I'm stubborn, so I don't listen right away.
I think that's a lot of us.
Yeah, it kept repeating. Like, you need to do this. And I followed. And then I just say that now God is my coach. God is my business coach. Because now the way my ego's like, okay, I want to offer this for my community. And then I kind of hand it over to Source and I'm like, okay, am I on the right path? And then the downloads start to come, like the ideas for a masterclass or an offering or whatever. And I trust that. And that's how I've been able to rebuild my business in a successful way that is both like dancing in the human, but also dancing in, my purpose and my gifts that were God-given.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a dance, right? It's a dance for sure. I would love for you to share, because I'm super little bit not a science nerd. I wasn't terrible at science, but I wasn't exceptionally good at science in school, but I'm fascinated by it because holy shit, these meat suits that's fucking cool. How all of this is just doing its thing. We're breathing without having to do anything. Our heart is beating without us having to do anything like that. that's a miracle, first of all. I just
Yeah,
want to say, like,
exactly.
hello,
Just look
like
in the mirror, I
miracles
always say.
everywhere. The sun coming up every day and setting every day. Hello, another miracle, because we could not exist. And one more thing to throw in there is just all of those pieces of my life and my ancestors' lives, and all of it have led to this very moment. This very moment is a miracle, because without every single one of those exact now moments leading till here, I wouldn't be here. I would not be here in this moment doing this thing right here, right now, without all of that. And that's a whole lot of moving parts, right?
Right.
Like my grandma and grandpa had to get together.
Ready to break free from self-doubt and embrace a life of empowerment? Introducing the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal, the ultimate companion to my international best-selling book, Unstuck for Women. This beautifully designed journal will take you on a transformative 90-day journey of gratitude, self-discovery, and personal growth. Each day, you'll dive deep into powerful insights, prompts, and exercises that build confidence and self-love. Align your actions with your desired feeling state and watch as your life transforms. This journal is your key to unlocking the extraordinary woman within you. So get ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth like never before. You can order your copy of the Unstuck for Women Daily Self-Discovery Journal today. Unleash your limitless potential.
I digress, went on a little tangent. Miracles abound. They're all around us. And so sometimes we can get stuck in different states of like trying to create the things, we can forget what's already right there. So I just wanted to pause and just have some gratitude for all of the miracles that are always surrounding us that we can sometimes forget about. Now, back to the science thing, because I agree with what you said earlier, that like science is now catching up and showing us how all of these sort of metaphysical or spiritual things, things isn't even the right word, miracles and happenings and experiences and all these things. Now science is like, actually, this is exactly the science behind how this has been working all along. Like, it's wild to me. And I think that's so cool now that we can actually see. My analytical brain loves it. So I would love for you to share any of your, favorite findings or favorite scientific backing and matching up with the metaphysical pieces that are coming to mind to share, especially when it comes to manifesting and magnetizing, our dream life.
I mean, gosh, this could be such a rabbit hole. This could be like a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
I think my favorite is to keep it very simple for everybody listening and watching, is that the body is the mind. And when I learned this and realized it, and it was all by divine intervention, truly by divine intervention. Like I could literally write a book about my journey, my healing journey. When we understand that our body is holding on to not only our ancestors' stuff, but our own emotions, our own, traumas, and we can actually change our entire, like, not only our inner landscape, but our external world as by way of working with the body. And I love mindset too, but don't get me wrong. You have to use both, because the body, like I said, the body is the subconscious mind. So when you understand that the body is the subconscious mind and you use it as a tuning fork to what it is you want to co-create, a lot of magic happens.
Yeah.
And it starts by, part of the practice that I have is releasing trapped emotions in the body.
Yeah.
And that I do that through my practices. But when you do that, the void that you create to receive higher frequencies, faster frequencies, which, like, maybe you want more money, or maybe you want a relationship, like a loving partner or whatever. It's really cool. It's really cool how fast and how magnetic you become when you create that space in the body.
And I want to add here too that I'm still I'm still completing my understanding of the attachment piece of this, but this creating of the space, I feel like also has to do with creating non-attachment to it. Because what I have found, and I'm still trying to master this in some areas of life, because it's easier said than done, perhaps. The more attachment that you have to something, the more the resistance there is to actually receiving it, because there's like a density to kind of bring it back to this creating space. There's like a density that blocks you from receiving it. And if you can release your attachment to it, right? Like, for example, when I had left my marriage, I knew I wanted a healthy relationship. I had defined exactly what it was. I had a note in my phone, exactly all the characteristics and experiences that I wanted to have in a loving, healthy, happy relationship. But when I was fresh out my divorce, I was like, oh, hell no. No, I don't even want it. I just want to focus on me. I just want to do me. I don't want to have any of that. I'm like, clear it out. Was so unattached that, like, out of nowhere, I was running a bloody marathon and met my current partner. Like, I was not looking, and I told him as much a whole lot of times. And so we took things really slowly, because I was like, well, hold up. I wanted to take some time for me here, universe. Wasn't quite ready for this, but like, it was really helpful actually, because I took it really slow, because I wasn't so needy. I wasn't desperately seeking that thing. I wasn't trying to get it. It was able to flow to me in a completely authentic and free way, without all of that attachment baggage. And so I think, the attachment's a big piece of this.
Yeah, attachment is a huge piece of it, because that's when ego takes over. So what it sounds like with you, which is lovely, by the way, it's like, when you're in that space of like, nah, I'm just gonna, like, you had a deep inner knowing that you didn't need to go looking for it, that you didn't need to go search for the partner. And you're just like, I'm doing me, girl. And that's when the magic happened for you. When you have that deep inner knowing, which is the same deep inner knowing that I had when I healed from 5 autoimmune conditions, in spite of doctors telling me I wasn't going to, I was like, you can tell me whatever you want, guy. I don't care what degree, your medical school you went to. Like, I know what I know. Like, that inner knowing is your soul, is your connection to that divine power. So you didn't need to, and that's stage 4, manifesting. Like, you didn't need to go do the vision board. You didn't even need to go on a dating app. And we all can manifest this way. And it requires being like having a practice, because you're also human and you have a nervous system. Now, in many cases, like your case, like my example with healing, we can, like I said, we can look for thousands of cases where miracles have happened because of non-attachment. Most people are trying to manifest from ego. So then it requires like being mindful of their attachment. And so how do you get to non-attachment?
Right.
When you're like, well, now I'm aware of what I want to manifest, and I'm trying to manifest it, and now I'm attached to it.
That's the challenge, right? Because you're like, for example, like money, right? Because this is definitely where I'm still working on it, because I'm like, well, first of all, I do live in this world. I do live in a capitalist system where I have a mortgage and I have bills. And so I do have sort of this slight attachment, for survival needs. So how do we navigate that one, Sonia?
So let me preface it by saying first that many of us can be really magnetic in a bunch of different areas in life. Like in the case of you, manifesting your partner. And then there's like usually one area that we're like, we're more egoic in. Yeah. So it's important to note that, because just because you're not manifesting in one area doesn't mean you're not going to manifest in other areas. So the non-attachment part comes as a byproduct. If this is an area for you where it's a little bit more sticky and you're like, oh, the money or whatever, it comes as a byproduct of, number one, feeling safe in your body. Yeah. That's where you start to connect to that inner knowing that, oh, this gets to happen. Now, I take you through a series of like different tools that you can use to remind yourself of that, but you got to get the nervous system right. Yeah. Because if you are in that survival, if you are in that, like, I need to make it happen, you are contracting the field. From a more 3D, you are contracting like the ability to receive, the ability to create, because your ideas aren't flowing and all that good stuff. So how do we get to non-attachment? I always say to people, practice, decide what the end result is for you. Decide what, say you want to make $10,000 a month or whatever. Decide what that is. Have a focus, have a goal, and then feel into that every day. Feel into it, not from a place of like, I got to feel into it. But like, I put my alarm clock and I'm like, oh, what would it feel like? Like, you let yourself visualize, maybe whatever works for you. There's many ways that work for different people, but what does it feel like? What is it going to feel like when I have the partner?
Yeah.
When you were in that place of manifesting your partner, you weren't feeling like in any contraction, because you're like, I get to do me now, and this is amazing. And you loved yourself. And that is the key to all manifesting.
Yeah.
Is that you're so, like, almost, I want to say, use the word selfish, but I know that it has a negative connotation, but you're so like into yourself loving and self-worth that you're not attached to like trying to make anything happen. So it's all about the feeling. The non-attachment happens as a byproduct of, what does it feel to be attached to the end result? What does that feel like?
And that requires us to think outside of, for the money situation, not just like the idea of having $10,000 in our bank account, but like what experiences will that create? Because we have to think beyond just like the dollar value, and like, oh, if I had all of this money, maybe I would travel. Maybe we would experience different foods and go out for lavish dinners. Maybe I would get more massages, whatever that looks like for you. That's how you can get more into that energy of, what's that going to feel like? Because that's essentially the process with that list that I had made, long before I met my partner. It wasn't about what kind of qualities this man going to have. It had nothing to do with that. It was how I was going to feel in that relationship. I was going to feel secure. I was never going to have to question where we were. We were going to have open and honest and real, genuine, deep conversations, right? It wasn't going to be surface level. It wasn't going to be placating. It wasn't going to be people pleasing. We were going to laugh, because life was meant to be fun. So those kinds of experiences allow us to really feel into the emotion of, well, what is that that experience of having $10,000 in your bank account every month? What is that going to allow you to create, right? As far as experiences go.
Yeah. And you want to tap into the feeling, because the feeling is what creates the magnetism. So you have resonating energy that is always being emitted out, right? And so when we talk about contraction and expansion, when you connect to the feelings that you just mentioned, like what ultimately we want the thing because we want to feel what the thing is going to give, like the feeling that the manifestation is going to give us. But your manifestations are generated from the inside out. Most of us think, well, when I get the thing, I'll feel it. And it's not that way. And that's why it's like, when you learn that you're generating the manifestation out, and I use this, it requires you having that energy, that aura that you're constantly emitting out. And then the universe picks up the frequency, and then all the things start to happen, like the synchronicity of you meeting your partner you couldn't have planned that if you put it on a vision board, girl.
No,
if you
no way.
I want to meet my partner at a marathon, you wouldn't have even thought about it, first of all, because the limited thinking mind would have been like, you're just going there to run. You're not going to meet people.
Try to not die, basically.
Right? Exactly. You couldn't have even thought of that. So that's why learning to, like you said, feel the feeling of, well, what is the thing gonna give the feeling of? Like, what is the feeling connected to the thing? And really focus on the feeling from within from the inside to the outside. Then you start to call in like even more amazing manifestations, because the universe works in magic. Yeah.
And I think, we've been so long kind of stuck in this illusion that we get the thing and then we find happiness. Like that's sort of like the conditioning that we've been under. Like you hustle, you chase, you go after it, you get the thing, you have the thing, and then you're happy.
Yeah.
But anybody who's tried that knows that shit is so fleeting, that even if you do that and you get the thing and you're happy, it's like poof, on to the next thing.
Exactly.
The chase never actually lands you in the thing, because that's just not the source of it. The external stuff is not the source of that feeling. The source of that feeling of happiness or peace or joy or love or whatever is actually within you. Same thing in love. You can't chase love from outside of yourself. You create love within, and it overflows and then attracts, and like, just about spilled my coffee. I'm so excited about it. This idea that it flows back to you, right?
Yeah, and that's really what you created.
Yeah.
You were like, I'm going to love me now, and that's just the way it's going to go, and it's going to be loving me. And then you were in that energetic state of like, I'm doing me, I'm loving me, and then boom, you were a magnet for your partner.
Yeah.
So it's simple, but it's like, again, we also have our nervous system and, you know, our layers of limiting beliefs and stuff like that sometimes just need clearing before we can become magnetic.
Yeah. So clearing away some of those, I don't even like the word blocks.
Yeah, I don't either.
I use it to explain this because it usually lands and people understand what I'm talking about, but I don't actually think that we ever have blocks. It's probably just a lack of awareness, or, you know, we might be buying into an illusion.
Like fears and doubts. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not actually like, it's not a wall. There's not something actually barricading you from it. It's you barricading you from the thing. Right. And so we're looking for it in the wrong places, right? We look for love and joy and happiness and peace in the outside world. There's nothing bad or wrong about you. That's just, you're looking in the wrong place. That's why you're not finding it.
Exactly.
So really, you know, clearing away the blocks and getting the blocks out of your way is really just coming back to what's already within and using that power that you already have, which I think is essentially what, you know, becoming the leading energy is all about, is harnessing this power within yourself to ideally the point of just knowing that it's going to happen, so that you're not stuck in the logical trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Not in the analytical, like where are all the steps that I need to take? And humans, we love to do this. And like I said, I used to be an accountant. So like, I love me to have a plan of like A to Z, exactly how that's going to play out. And if you had spoken to me a decade ago, I would have probably told you something like, uncertainty is like my core nemesis. Like my highest value might have been certainty, which now I'm like, wow, that was really limiting. And if anybody else out there is listening, I'm just about to spill my coffee again. Holy smokes. I'm very excited today. I'm very handsy. It's very dramatic. I realized actually that the longer I spent time in that certainty where I thought I was so safe and protected and I knew what to expect, was limiting me from all of the outside, all those miracles, all of those opportunities and possibilities that were outside of my familiar quote unquote comfort zone, which actually wasn't all that fucking comfortable. We're really honest. It was just familiar and, again, quote unquote safe, not good, not great, not amazing, just kind of like I knew what to expect. Right. And I guess there is a certain comfort in knowing what to expect, even if it's expecting more shitty things that you don't really want. But we're not here for that. We're here to have all of the experiences that we dream of. And so, you know, we have to play in that realm of uncertainty, because that's where we open up to all of those opportunities and possibilities, and including the ones that we never even thought possible, like, you know, meeting your partner while running a marathon.
Yeah. So yeah, I think, you know, what you speak of about it's really like the familiar known, like being hooked onto the familiar known, and something I offer my clients in order to, because again, we're working with the nervous system, because you also don't want to be like, go, you know, jump off a cliff now that, you know, you decided to manifest the best life ever. You don't want to burn out the nervous system.
Yeah.
But
so it's right back to square one anyways, right?
Yeah, exactly. One way that you can start to expand your capacity to not only like be magnetic, but also to receive and to hold, is to do one thing a day that is like, that challenges like those fears of the self-doubt. And it can be small. It can be like, you know, for an entrepreneur, it might be like, let me go do a Facebook Live or whatever, you know. You can take daily action to expand into your next level out of the familiar known. Because when you expand out of the familiar known is when you start to enter the unknown, which is where the magic happens.
Yeah.
But you don't do it in a way that's like so radical that you then like drop into like burnout or, nervous system dysregulation.
Yeah.
That's important to note that too.
Absolutely. Those baby steps. Like I often share, when I love hiking. And so when we go hiking, sometimes there's some terrain that makes my heart pitter patter a little bit faster, than I'm used to. And it's a stretch outside my comfort zone. But what I have really experienced is a little pitter patter. It's fine. Try to avoid complete meltdown. I've had a couple of those as well, but if you can just get a little comfortable being a tiny bit uncomfortable, just baby steps, like towing the edge of that comfort zone so that it starts to expand. Now, every time you do that, it expands a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And so then your nervous system gets a little bit more comfortable with walking on scree, for example, and not fearing the whole time that you were going to plummet to your death. And having a little bit more confidence, that your footing is going to be okay. And it's actually not as scary as your mind is making it out to be. And I think that's like the ego at play, trying to keep us safe by blowing shit way out of proportion. Yeah. You're like, whoa, this is really unfamiliar. And you're like, is it really? Is it like really unfamiliar? Or is it just like a little bit unfamiliar? And maybe I can take some baby steps while working on bringing that nervous system on board so that I don't have a complete freak out and meltdown, and can actually safely get down off this mountain, or can now safely go live on Facebook or whatever it is. And those little tiny actions that align with that future vision that you have are necessary, because you can't just hold the intention and be like, I'm going to make $1 million. Yeah. And then like veg on your couch watching Netflix with a bag of Doritos. That's not, that's fine sometimes. I'm not knocking. I love me some Netflix and I love me some Doritos, no judgment here. But if that's your pattern, it's not likely going to take you to that end result that you're seeking.
Yeah. So I always say be, do, have. So like, yes. I work with entrepreneurs and I'm like, well, who are you being in relation to your vision? Because you actually have to be her now. You can't wait to invest in a thing. Like, and I'm not telling anybody what to do with their money, but this is a common one. I'm going to wait. No, you have to be her now. Like when I decided to go to life coaching school, I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 little kids. I got paid in hugs. I wasn't making any money, but I knew I knew this was my purpose and my passion, and I was going for it. And I was her. I'm like, well, who would I have to be? This was before I had any like personal development stuff. That's a lie. I had worked with a coach. But I was like, who do I need to be in order to make this happen? Like in order to start co-creating, right? I need to show up as her. And what would that look like? And that's when I got creative with, well, how can I make the money to pay for school?
And I think when we're being the thing, right, this ties back into sort of the synchronicities and the serendipity as well. And that brain science, that if we are in a state of happiness, for example, we are primed to experience and see opportunities for more happiness. And if we are primed for a state of, fear, we are more likely going to our brain just filters out. There's too much information. So the state of being affects what we're filtering into our experience. So we want to make sure, first off, that we are being in that state that we want to expand further into. It's like saying, I want to be healthy in my body. Well, what does a person who feels healthy and great and energetic in their body, what would they be doing? Probably something maybe different, right? If it's a state that's not right now that you not have, how do you start to get into that state, right? Because that getting into that state allows you the synchronicities and the serendipities to show up in your world.
Well, I mean, you collapse time. You literally collapse. You bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be by taking the action. So, to your point about like, if you want to feel healthy in your body, sitting on a couch eating Doritos is not probably in alignment with this vision that you have. But what would be in alignment? Probably going for a walk. It doesn't have to be run a marathon.
Yeah.
Going for a walk might be a good start. Drinking more water might be a good start. And that's when I say be, do, have. The more you be, the more magnetic you become, and the more you collapse the time and you bring your manifestation closer to reality. So this is a lot of like the woo and the science, but it's also like, let's bring it into the 3D and take the action. Like if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, who are you being? Are you putting offers out there? Are you selling? Are you talking to people? All the things.
Yeah.
Or are you sitting on your couch watching Netflix? Which you can do both, but you also have to take that radical responsibility and ask yourself, am I already being that? My brand is Magnetic CEO. Am I being that magnetic CEO? Am I being the woman who shows up for her dream and her vision? And what are the actions I'm taking in alignment with that vision?
And that is a really powerful place to be in. I think a lot of people, myself included in the past, like I said, I really loved that certainty, really crave this idea of having clarity of the whole vision before we start taking action. And to further the rest of my story, the longer I stayed in this idea of like, I need to know what I'm going to do, and I like to have the certainty before I start the whole map from A to Z, except that when I started to do step A, then I realized, oh, that did not go exactly the way I had necessarily planned. So now B through Z are a little wonky. And so I had to keep adjusting my course. And so all that to say is you can have clarity about that end destination, but you can't have the whole thing mapped out. That's just not, it's just not the way things work. It's not the way things go. And so as long as we just take the next step, that's how we get the clarity. The clarity isn't like the whole thing and every detail before we start. It's what's the next step? What is my intuition telling me to do now? From the state of being, I want to experience this outcome. What is the next baby step that I can take towards that? And then the next step, and then the next step. And then things become more clear. Clarity doesn't come beforehand. It comes from taking action.
Yeah. I love that quote. You just reminded me of, you don't need to see the whole staircase before you take the first step or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's choosing and deciding that, your vision is stronger and greater than your current self.
Yeah. And it's about the journey, not the destination anyways. So if we can always bear that in mind, it is about the path. It is about the experience. It'll save us from a lot of this chasing this end destination that, like I had mentioned earlier, when we get there, realize, oh, that was very fleeting, because it wasn't about that destination. It was about the journey and the expansiveness of the whole process and what you're able to gain and grow and learn and evolve along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anything else that you would like to share with us before we start wrapping up the episode? Anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to cover here?
I think I just want to end with a little nugget for people that they can start practicing if they so wish. And that is just wake up every morning and ask yourself, well, if you have a vision that you're excited about, how do I choose to be today in relation to that vision? How do I choose to show up in relation to that vision? And then you'll start to see the magic unfold.
It's like setting that little intention for the day and holding it with you. It is magical. Sonia, tell us where listeners can get a hold of you and any offers that you have, ways that they might get into your world and work with some of this magical process.
Thank you. They can find me on Facebook. I have a private Facebook group called Magnetic CEO. They can come in there. I do, trainings and master classes and all that stuff. I'm also on Instagram, Sonia Lopez Coach. And they can jump on my website, sonialopezcoaching.com. I do currently running a mini mastermind. It's a 6-week mastermind where we're focusing all on energetics. It's called Elevate. And if they're interested in that, I can send you the link and you can drop it in the comments.
Awesome. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing
This was fun.
Incredible, juicy wisdom and going deep, because that's how I like to roll.
I can't help it.
I know. It's humans are fascinating. This whole experience is fascinating. this opportunity that we have to take from the all that is in theory and literally experience it with these 5 senses in this human meat suit is just an incredible journey.
Yeah, it's fun.
Any final thoughts that you would like to leave the listeners with as we close out today?
I think, we're really in a great time of collective evolution in spite, I know a lot of us are seeing a lot of shadow coming to the surface right now with everything that's going on. And I want to say personally, from somebody who went through a lot of, darkness, that out of darkness comes the light every single time. So no matter where you're at in your journey, you can always be the conscious co-creator. It just takes, practice and choosing over and over what you want to create in your life. So
absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Christy.
Your wisdom. I enjoyed every minute of this. I hope the listeners did too. If you had any aha moments or would love to share with us any key takeaways from this conversation, we would love to hear from you. I love you all. Now let's go do some epic shit, shall we? Mwah.
Yeah, love it. Take care.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Create Your Happy's special bonus season. I trust this real, raw, uncut conversation will fuel your inner fire and provide you with the practical action steps needed to propel you forward. It's time to unlock your path to consciously creating an impact and leaving your legacy. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and share with other women in your life who could use a little extra inspiration today. My guest and I would love to hear from you. You'll find the links to connect with us both in the show notes. And if you're ready to take your life, relationship, and business to the next level, I invite you to consider working with me one-on-one. Together, we'll up-level every aspect of your beautiful human journey to create the fulfilling relationships that you desire and deserve. Reach out to learn more about how we can embark on this transformative journey together. As always, get out there, have fun, be you, and create your happy.